Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Now, we're also going to be talking to our HR specialist who's on board with us, numerous times here on Morning Barbados, Joan Underwood. And she is a purpose driven talent development specialist, and she's guided by certain principles. And those principles have now landed her with an award. Yes, she has received the Hermat HR Regional Champion Award at the individual level. And this is the first ever regional award of its kind for her work in human resources. So I want to say good morning to Joan, one of our regular contributors. How have you been?
I've been great. What about you, Wendy?
Great. Now, we know about her MAB. We know about your organization, which is managers. But what is HERMAT?
HERMAT is the Trinidad and Tobago version of HERMAB here in Barbados. So it's the HR Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, you're a Bajan, you're working with businesses and companies here. Yes, Trinidad is just across the way, but what led you to that award?
Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me as a Bajan. I'm actually Antiguan, married to a Bajan and living in Barbados, but born in Antigua. And my work is actually throughout the region. And it came as quite a surprise to me, actually, because you get up every day, you do what you have to do, you make your contribution. And when your peers decide to acknowledge and celebrate your work, it's a really gratifying and humbling experience. So I had no idea I was even nominated. I don't know who would have nominated me, but I received correspondence from my colleagues in Trinidad indicating first that I had been nominated, and then a few weeks later that I had been declared the winner of the first ever Regional HR Champion Award.
Now, what do you, in terms of the body of work that you present and the help that you give to various businesses, what for you are some of the things that you think may have put you in that champion chair?
Well, I think the book had quite a bit to do with it. The book has been doing quite well throughout the region. For example, the government of St. Lucia purchased the book and distributed it to a large swath of their middle managers. I have private entities that have done the same. There's some regional conglomerates that have issued the book to their managers as well. The University of the West Indies, there's some courses that use the book as a supplemental reading. So the book is a significant part of it. In terms of the public sector, a few years ago, I published a number of technical papers which were commissioned by the Inter-American Development Bank on the state of HR in the public service. And that covered 6 CARICOM countries. And those papers are now used as reference material, also guiding the work in public sector modernization and transformation. My work as a coach, I coach leaders from throughout the Caribbean. And having served on the executive committee for HERMAB, spoken at several regional conferences, etc. So I think those are all elements which would have contributed to the body of work that has been acknowledged by my colleagues in Trinidad.
I want to go back to these papers that you publish about the state of HR. What's the general sentiment coming out where those 6 countries are concerned? Where are we in terms of how we manage our human resource?
Okay. So when I did that research, we looked at 2 elements of each of the primary functions of HR in the public service. The first is the level of maturity of the systems that were in place. And then the second was the extent to which the systems were effectively executed. And in a number of instances, the systems were very well designed on paper, but unfortunately not as well executed. So the compliance wasn't there. So, for example, in Barbados, the performance management system was well designed. However, there was less than a one-third compliance rate. So, it happens sometimes you develop policies and procedures, but you don't get implementation. And there are some countries which were low in maturity, both in terms of the design of the systems, and of course, if you haven't designed them, you can't implement them. But far too often, we saw that there were systems that had been designed, but were not compliant. Practitioners were not compliant. And one of the reasons that this is able to happen is that we do not focus sufficiently on accountability, holding people accountable for doing what is required of them in order to secure the successful management of human resources, both within public and private sectors.
Okay, that's a revelation there. Now, you said that the kit, the book, has been given by governments, etc. Individuals have also been reading it too. So, can we, given that you're now a champion, can we look for another book on the horizon?
Oh, you're calling me out here. I'm actually working on another book, but it is not in the same genre as Manager's First Aid Kit. There's a novel that I'm currently working on as a tribute to my maternal grandmother. So once I get that squared away, then I will look at what's next in terms of HR, management, leadership, because I have been getting requests for more published work on leadership.
But given what you just told me about the stats and the issues of implementation, I'm thinking that maybe some direction as to how to implement and move it forward would be far more instrumental at this stage.
Yes, and that actually falls under the leadership umbrella as well, because part of the reason that we have this implementation deficit is related to how we lead. And specifically, how do we lead significant change initiative, transformational change? So, yeah, so it seems as if we're fleshing out the outline of the new book right here and right now, Wendy. Thank you for that input.
Yes. So, having received the champion, working on a book as a tribute to your grandmother, what about the coaching? How much of that have you been able to do?
Well, the coaching continues, and I think that's the part of my work that probably gives me the most joy. Because when, as a coach, you work with someone and they have that breakthrough and they grow in confidence, for me, it's so gratifying. So, and my love language is words of affirmation. So when I hear from my coachees and they tell me how much of a difference it's made in their lives, that is really, really great validation for me. So I continue to coach. My target market with the coaching is primarily executive levels. I also deal with middle managers, persons who aspire to be at the executive level. About 80% of my coaching clients are females. I love working with women because the way we are socialized sometimes can serve as a disadvantage, and we have to deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. We don't necessarily understand the rules of engagement in a corporate environment. And so I'm able to help my coaching clients navigate that space successfully.
Explain to me quickly what imposter syndrome is.
Imposter syndrome occurs when the individual has a sense that they don't necessarily legitimately belong where they are, that they're faking it, and people might find out that they don't know what they're doing, that they don't really belong there. Now, this has absolutely nothing to do with their actual ability. It's an internal sense of insecurity. So you may think, oh, if they only knew how confused I was, or that, I'm not as good as they think I am, I'd be exposed as a fraud. So again, it doesn't have anything to do with your actual capability. It's a form of insecurity. And so I work with clients to shift their mindset, to reframe, and to use evidence to dispute this fear, this insecurity, so that you show up as confident, assured, and that you acknowledge that I don't have to know everything. No one expects me to know everything. What I need to do is to show up as the best possible version of myself and to commit to continuing to learn and grow and develop as I move forward with my both my personal and my professional life.
Could that be stemming from a situation, maybe perhaps where the individual might be fully qualified on paper for the position, but they might believe because I've not spent that many years close to or near to ascending to this role, maybe people will think that way about me?
Yes, obviously, yes, that's a consideration. But sometimes we even have people who you and I look at them and think, "Oh, they're at the peak of their game. They're so good at what they do." They too could be subject to imposter syndrome, and sometimes it goes back to something that may have happened, that may have been said to us in our childhood. A teacher or a parent or someone else that you looked up to could have had a careless word that you just internalized, and which has that adverse impact that you continue to carry even as an adult.
Okay. So if we are trying to build confidence in an individual here, and not just necessarily a manager, I know that's the level you tend to coach at in terms of leaders and so on, but you move through different stages and phases within a workplace, and you want to know that you're prepared. And it's one of the things people talk about a lot when we talk about succession planning, especially in smaller businesses, which we see tend to falter because nobody was really prepared to take
Yeah,
over.
yeah. And, fortunately, more and more organizations are coming to the awareness of what you just shared. So, right now, I'm in Antigua. I'm here working with a client. It's in the hospitality sector. And they have been tremendously successful over the years. Now, the question of succession has come up because the folks who started the entity, who have been the driving force behind it, they're saying, hey, we would like to relax a bit and we want to ensure that we can do so without having to worry about the quality of the services and the properties, etc., being compromised. And so they've invested in coaching for individual members of their leadership team. But they're not just stopping at that. So I'm working with the members of the leadership team, but we're also putting systems and structures in place to help to create a pipeline of talent so that the business can ensure that it's sustainable over the long term. So, talent development is how organizations, including the public sector, can help to ensure future viability by investing in the development of its people.
Now, speaking about this talent development, what would you say is the best path to take? Is it wise to have people do job swaps whereby I take on your role and you take on mine so we have a better understanding of how each role functions? What's the best way to go in terms of developing that talent?
Okay, the short answer is that there's no single magic bullet or pill that you take. Rather, what you need is a menu of options because everyone's career path will be a bit different. So it's important to have a comprehensive performance management system. It's important to have career guidance, career pathing. It's important to have job rotations, as you indicated, because if you're going to ultimately lead the entire organization, it's important to understand how the organization works. and they're transferable skills. So, from working in different departments, you get an overview of the entire business model, how it operates. Not that you need to be able to do everything, but you have to have an understanding and appreciation of how the pieces fit together. Coaching is an essential component. Giving, and this is really important now, giving people the opportunity to learn by doing in a safe environment. So the job attachments, the stretch projects, the mentoring, these all help to ensure that you have an effective succession plan in place. And having the conversations with your people, getting to know and understand them. What are their aspirations? Each of your employees should have an individual development plan so that the supervisor, the boss, the manager knows where the aspirations lie and can help them to systematically fill the gaps and to advance in their personal and professional development.
But are plans really done within businesses? Do people actually say, well, yes, I can see this particular skill set in Peter, that particular one in Joan, another one in Bob. He or she has these particular skills that can be transferred to another department. Are we really tracking and mapping the individuals within our workspace?
And that comes back to what we discussed previously when we spoke about those technical reports. Remember, I said some people have the systems on paper, but they don't implement them. And that's why accountability is so important. And it is indeed happening in some systems. You can see, and I remember when I was in corporate, it was so gratifying to be able to see the leaders. I could sit back and check off the things that had been in their individual development plans in terms of, formal education. So this is someone who, based on what they said they wanted to accomplish, we would have said it would be useful for you to get a certain certification, a certain designation. They got it. Then you could see the upward mobility that resulted from them having fulfilled that objective. So it doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you're committed to doing the work. And we're not striving for perfection here. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. So to take incremental steps, the benefits will come in due course if you persevere. Start from where you are today. Make the commitment to invest in your people. Employees, make the commitment to invest in yourself, to become your own best advocate, because
Okay.
sometimes employees abdicate responsibility to their employer. Oh, they should look out for me, they should give me the opportunity. You need to advocate for what you want, what you need to be professionally fulfilled.
And that is a wonderful note on which to end this morning, Joan. We all have to be fulfilled in some form or fashion. I want to thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Morning Barbados. And again, congratulations to you on that first ever regional award.
Thank you so much.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.